Happy So What Day. I hope that you are starting off your week great and that you are ready to dive into some projects today. I have some patriotic themed projects for us today, and quite a few of them actually. We have a lot to get through, because July 4 is right around the corner, and how many of you out there like to decorate for Independence Day? It's fun to get all the flags out and the sparklers and all that good stuff. And if you're entertaining, you might want to have, some new little decor elements to add to perhaps what you already put out. So I have hopefully some, inspiration for you to kind of kickstart you into thinking about your patriotic projects. But before we get started, I want to make sure everybody is registered for our Boba Tea in the Hoop zipper pouch free webcast with Parker on the Porch. Jen Chesnick from Parker on the Porch is going to take us through this in the Hoop zipper pouch. It's so adorable. My kids are going batty over it. They just want one so bad. And let's be honest, so do I. I happen to love a boba tea as well. They're so cute and the drinks are so fun. If you've never had a boba tea, you should really try one. They are really taking the world by storm right now. So you can make one out of fabric and thread. And this one also has some sulky felty incorporated. So it's a nice little soft pouch and it's fully lined and it's just the cutest thing. It comes in lots of different sizes for lots of different hoops. So even if you only have a small hoop, you do need at least a 5x7 hoop in order to create the project, regardless of the size that you're making. You need at least a 5x7 hoop. Let's see. And there is also a bonus design. So when you purchase the kit for this free webcast, you will of course get the embroidery design files to make the In the Hoop zipper pouch, but you will also get a bonus design collection to make the boba tea stuffy. This one is made out of plushy fabric. The straw is a little bit different. It is stuffed as well. So these make really great gifts. If you know a little one who is celebrating a birthday this summer or something like this, they would absolutely love to have their little boba tea stuffy, I guarantee you. And this one comes in multiple sizes as well. And just for registering for the free webcast, all you have to do is sign up for it. You will get some free designs from Parker on the Porch. They have generously provided these cute little mochi charms and this boba tea card guard. They call them card guards at Parker on the Porch. It basically holds your ID, a little bit of cash, or you can slip a gift card inside and you can attach it to the little zipper pull of your zipper pouch, or you can gift them separately, create them as party favors, all kinds of things. So the little mochis are made out of sulky felty. And then for your card guard, you can use cork fabric, faux leather fabric, any sort of no fray fabric will do for either of these projects. And you will see how they come together during the webcast as well. So be sure and register. It's happening June 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time over at sewingonline.sulky.com. And you'll get to meet Jen Chesnick, learn all about Parker on the Porch. She's just such a great gal, and I think you will love her design sensibilities and all of the tips and tricks and all of that she's going to share with us. So make sure you grab up your kit. It's on sale for an amazing deal, and the sale only lasts until the night of the webcast. So make sure to get yours while we still have them in stock, first of all, and while they are on sale as well. All right, enough about our webcast happening June 13th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's get to our patriotic projects. First, I want to share with you a really versatile project that utilizes a frame design. There's lots of frame designs out there for various holidays. This one is perfect for July 4 because it's got those fireworks and stars all around it. But frame designs are really for framing other designs, right? Like a monogram or another sort of patriotic design on the inside of it, or a little message or something like this. That's why they're called frame designs. And you might have some frame designs built into your embroidery machine as well, and you may or may not have used them before. These make great designs for quilt blocks as well. They look particularly great with a monogram in the center, but you could frame whatever you like. You can even fussy cut your fabric and then position your embroidery frame around one of the fabric motifs to really make it shine and make it stand out. So lots of different, ways you can use frame designs. So this is from our Uncle Sam machine embroidery collection, which comes also as a machine embroidery palette. When we say palette, that means that not only do you get all of the embroidery designs in that collection, but you also get all of the sulky threads that you need in order to embroider those designs. So a palette is a really great way to save a little bit of money because you are getting all of the threads all at once and you're basically getting the designs almost for free. So it's a great way to purchase up embroidery collections, and then you don't have to hunt through your thread stash and find, just the perfect red and things like that the designs call for. So first and foremost, you're going to load one of the frame designs into your embroidery machine. I should probably show you the project that we are working with. Let's see, I have so many things to show you today that I think that picture got a little bit lost. Let me see if I can find it. All right, so this is just one of the projects that we're going to make using the same basic or base tutorial. It's a little denim pillow. You can use it in a centerpiece. You can make it into like a shelf pillow and, group it with some other patriotic decor that you might have. And it has a little bit of a twist to it as well. So I'll show you that momentarily. But first, we are going to create some wall art. And so you can use this basic tutorial and either turn it into some wall art by hooping it in a hand embroidery hoop, adding a little bit of trim, hanging it on your front door or on the wall or by your coffee station or what have you. Or you can take this exact fabric after it's embroidered and embellished and turn it into this little shelf mini pillow. So two different projects, same technique that we are starting with here. All right, so let's go back to the beginning and go back to our design. So we're going to load our design into the machine, and all of the designs in the Uncle Sam machine embroidery collection come in 3 sizes. You'll get a size for a 4x4 hoop, a 5x7 hoop, and a 6x10 hoop. So you can create your wall art as small or as large as you want within those hoop sizes. So that is entirely up to you, and it will affect, of course, your finished pillow if you want to go the pillow route for finishing your project, or affect the size of embroidery hoop that you need to display your wall art. So you might remember a few weeks back, I did a tutorial on a beach tote, and I used an existing pattern that called for cork fabric or faux leather fabric as the base of the tote. And instead of using that, I used a pair of old, worn, torn up, cut apart jeans, and I used one of the leg portions as the base of my summer beach tote. So this actually utilizes the other leg. So, nothing goes to waste when we are sewers. It's just so true. All right, so you can use denim fabric, you can use canvas fabric, you can even use cotton fabric. If you are going to use something like a quilting cotton fabric, I would suggest interfacing it just to give it a little bit more body, especially if you're using it as wall art. And that way, when it's hanging, it doesn't kind of droop, if you will. Now, we're also going to use a little bit of stabilizer, of course, because we are adding machine embroidery, and that's going to help, give it some shape as well. But I would just use maybe a little fusible, lightweight interfacing if you go the quilting cotton route. But at any rate, I, for some reason, really think that denim looks great with red, white, and blue. It kind of screams Americana to me. So I like to use denim for patriotic projects, placemats, even put strips of denim in table runners and things like that. It also really helps with outdoor decor because it's super durable too. So at any rate, I went with denim. You're going to cut your first denim square or rectangle, and I did not place it in my hoop. I floated it over the top of my hoop. That is for if you are using a standard hoop. Now you can see I have a magnetic hoop under this denim fabric, so I was able to hoop it. But a lot of denim fabrics are too thick to be hooped in a standard hoop. And sometimes denim fabric also has a bit of stretch to it. So if you're able to get it into your standard hoop, sometimes it can stretch. And then you do your pretty embroidery and you pop it out of that hoop, and all of a sudden there's tons of puckering around your design. That's because the fabric stretched during embroidery, and then when it relaxed back to its regular self, there was no room for that thread to go. So that resulted in puckers. So if you have a standard hoop, you're going to float it over the top of your hoop. If you have a magnetic hoop, you can hoop it right in that magnetic hoop. You can see that since they are magnets, there's no inner hoop that is pushed into the outer hoop. They just snap together like big magnets. They are so amazing. So if you're interested in magnetic hoops, we have them at sulky.com. And all you need to do is kind of plug in your machine, brand, make, and model, and it will tell you the available hoop sizes that you can purchase for your particular machine. So we're going to hoop our denim fabric with a layer of stabilizer. And for this, I used Sulky Stiffy Stabilizer. Stiffy is a heavier weight tearaway stabilizer, and it's really great for heavier weight fabrics. You always kind of want to think about the weight of your fabric when you're thinking about the type of stabilizer to use for your project. And if you're ever, on the fence, can't really decide between one or the other stabilizers, you can go to our website. We have this amazing tool. It's called the Stabilizer Selector Tool. And you go in there, plug in the fabric that you're using, the technique that you're doing, and it will spit out a recommendation of what stabilizer to use. So it's a really great starting point for deciding what stabilizer is right for your project. Or if you're on the fence, like I mentioned, it might just push you in one direction or the other and give you some great guidance. It also, gives you some bullet points to consider if there are multiple stabilizers that could work for your project. It could give you 3 different options, and then you just decide based on the removal method or something like this, then it can become part of your personal preference. All right, so we're going to use Stiffy. We're pairing it with the denim. We are hooping it if we have a magnetic hoop, or we're going to float our denim over the hooped Stiffy stabilizer using a little bit of KK2000 to make sure that our denim fabric is nice and flat and stuck to that Stiffy that's been hooped. And now we can put our hoop onto the machine and begin our embroidery. So if you want to frame another embroidery design inside of your frame, you want to be sure to add that to your machine screen and resize it, rotate it, what have you, make it look how you want to, and make sure that you have a good little border around that design so that your frame, flanks it nicely all the way around so that it's not sort of running into the frame design. But for this, I'm actually going to use a little bit of hand embroidery on the inside of my frame just to change it up a little bit and have it be like a mixed media kind of piece. But you could certainly add a monogram, or I am embroidering the letters USA in the center of my frame. So you could use a built-in font or your favorite font that you purchased from an embroidery designer. And you can bring those letters into your machine screen and you can embroider everything all at once. But as I mentioned, I'm just going to do some quick hand embroidery just to give it a little bit more texture, dimension, a little, different touch or flavor or style to the end project. So I'm only going to embroider the frame design, but if you've brought in another design to go in the center of your frame, then you will do the entire thing in the hoop. So make sure as you're working your way through the embroidery design that you are clipping those jump threads with each thread change. Especially with this design, there's a lot of colors that jump around, and we want to be sure that none of our stitches are interfering with the movement of our hoop and, the movement of the needle. And we don't want anything to get tangled or snagged and cause additional puckering or other catastrophes. So be sure that you're clipping those jump threads throughout your stitch out. I like to use these curved tip squeezers that you see here. Because they have that curved point, you can get in there. You don't even have to remove your hoop from the machine, and you can quickly trim up those jump threads. And you don't have to risk, snagging your fabric or accidentally slicing into other stitches that may have already sewn out during the stitch out. So I happen to love these curved tip squeezers. I know a lot of you have them already and use them for this as well. So at any rate, work your way through that embroidery design. This is what mine looks like all finished. So the cool thing about the Uncle Sam machine embroidery palette is that it comes with a combination of sulky 40 weight rayon thread and sulky 30 weight poly sparkle thread. Poly sparkle is our polyester thread that has flecks of metallic running through it. But it's so easy to sew and embroider with. Typically when you're working with original metallic thread, or especially the sliver and hollow shimmer varieties at Sulky, which don't get me wrong, I love those threads as well, but you do need to take into account a number of machine adjustments when you're working with those other metallic threads. It's just the nature of the beast and it's totally worth it. But with the Poly Sparkle, you can sew it out just like you're sewing regular Poly Deco polyester thread. It glides through your needle smoothly because there's only these flecks of metallic running through it, and it's mostly polyester. So portions of the design are going to be done in the Poly Sparkle thread. So you need to be aware that pretty much all embroidery machines don't recognize Poly Sparkle at all, because it's a relatively new thread out there, even though it's a few years old. And it takes these machine brands a long time to format their software, their machines, all of that to recognize new thread colors, new thread types. You can only imagine with the myriad options that there are out there and how quickly new things are being developed, how hard it is for them to keep up on those things. So when you put this design into your embroidery machine, it's imperative that you reference the color sequence chart that comes with the design files, because that's going to tell you where and when you're using Poly Sparkle thread, because your machine is probably going to go to a default of another rayon color or even another thread brand if it's really not recognizing that Poly Sparkle thread. Does this make sense? So always, always, even if you're going to deviate from the thread order or thread color, I should say, in a particular design, always, always first pull up that color sequence chart PDF and note which colors are used where. And then you can either print that out and put it next to your machine, or you can have it on your screen if you have a laptop or a tablet or something that you can put next to your embroidery machine so that you can reference it digitally on screen. That way, if you are swapping out the colors, you know, okay, I'm going to use this pink instead of this red, let's say, and this red is here, here, here. Or here is where the poly sparkles are. I need a visual clue, so I'm going to highlight those, or whatever, however you work best with that color sequence chart. I just want to make you aware because you will get these poly sparkle colors in with the palette, and your machine screen may not be telling you where and when those are used. All right, so here is my finished design with the embroidery, the machine embroidery. And now we're just going to gently tear away the stabilizer beyond the design perimeter. Now, if you have already sewn out a secondary design inside of that frame, you can also tear away the stabilizer beyond that, or you can leave it alone and it will act as a little bit of interfacing or interlining so that when you construct everything, your designs are nice and flat, and they're always going to stay that way, regardless of whether you make a plushy pillow or a wall hanging. For this, since I'm going to add hand embroidery, I want that stabilizer intact inside of my frame. So I left it intact in there, and I just tore away the outside stabilizer beyond my fireworks and beyond the frame. And I'm going to do all my hand stitching through that stiffy stabilizer as well. And it's going to help stabilize my fabric, so I don't even have to hoop it in an embroidery hoop to do the handwork, because it'll be nice and flat and stable. So now you can see I have just that outer perimeter, and I did not clip my jump threads on the wrong side, so it looks a bit messy, but all of that is going to be concealed when we construct either the wall hanging or that pillow. So you can see I left all of that stabilizer within the frame there. And now for the wall art version, I'm going to use a sulky wooden embroidery hoop. The wooden embroidery hoops that Sulky offers are very high quality. They're not like those splintery craft hoops that are kind of, they can go out of shape really easily. They're really nice quality. For only a couple bucks more, you get something that will last and will look really nice hanging on the wall or hanging on your front door. So I highly recommend them over and above those splintery, versions that you might find in the craft store. So you want to make sure to choose an embroidery hoop that is a bit larger than the frame that you decided to stitch out. And we have these wooden embroidery hoops in 6-inch, 8-inch, and 10-inch sizes. So depending on whether you did the 4x4, the 5x7, or 6x10, you should be good with either a 6, 8, or 10-inch hand embroidery hoop. And you can choose to hoop it and do your hand embroidery while it's hooped, or you can probably get away with not hooping it if you're just doing the back stitch embroidery that I'm about to show you, because of the additional stiffy stabilizer that is on the back side of the fabric. All right, so I'm going to hoop it anyway, just for the sake of argument. And you don't even have to get your design centered in the hoop. We just want it taut enough so that we can do our handwork and have it not go anywhere and have it look really nice. So we're just going to hoop up our embroidered frame, making sure that it's semi-centered, doesn't have to look perfect quite yet. And we're going to use Sulky 12-weight cotton petites. But first, I want to map out my hand embroidery design. So you can either draw directly onto your denim fabric using a removable fabric marker. I like a friction pen if I'm doing that because I can remove it entirely just using heat from an iron. Sometimes I feel like when I'm using chalk for hand embroidery transfers, the chalk can get on the thread and just kind of make a little bit of a mess, and it's harder to remove. Or my favorite way of transferring hand embroidery designs is to use sulky stick and stitch. Stick and stitch are printable 8.5 by 11 sticky stabilizer sheets, and they are water soluble. So you can either print out a design or monogram or something of your choice that's going to fit within your frame, or you can draw on the stick and stitch your own self. You don't have to put it through your printer, but it certainly makes it easier. If you don't trust your own handwriting or that type of thing, you can simply print out your favorite font and follow along the lines of your printed, stick and stitch transfer. So I just went ahead and drew USA, spacing my letters equidistantly, and cut out my stick and stitch. And then you remove the paper backing and stick the stabilizer right to the right side of your fabric. And you can lift it up and reposition it if it's not, right in the center or right where you want it. And, when you get it where you want it, you just start stitching through all layers. And as I mentioned, we're going to use sulky 12 weight cotton petites thread for our hand embroidery. Cotton petites. So this is equal, one strand of this is equal to 2 strands of traditional embroidery floss. So you get really great coverage and you only have to deal with 1 thread strand. Or you can use 2 thread strands, and that would be equal to, you guessed it, 4 strands of traditional embroidery floss. So if you're doing a satin stitch fill or something like that, 2 strands will get you 4 strands worth of coverage if you had been using, a skein of floss. Not to mention, this comes on a spool. So you can use the snap ends and you can wind your thread end into the snap ends and throw it in your project bag and you're off to the races. Now, if you're used to working with embroidery floss, you know what a hassle it is to deal with those skeins and the knots that you can get and the picking of the different, strands, and it's just a headache. So it's really nice that this comes on a spool. And then you can also use it in your machine. All you need to do is make sure you have a big enough needle to accommodate the thread thickness. So you need about a 100 or a 110 needle. And then the type of needle is going to be dependent on your fabric and technique. And you'll be able to sew with this as well. So it's a really, really great product, especially for handwork. But again, you can also use it in your machine. So I'm just going to use 1 strand of this, and I'm going to do a simple back stitch along my U, S, and A. And there you can see I'm beginning the back stitch. And then it's all complete. And if you keep your design simple enough, hand embroidery doesn't have to be super daunting. I know a lot of people are like, oh, handwork, I would just rather use my machine. And I hear ya. I totally get it. Some hand embroidery designs or even counted cross stitch can take so long. But there is a time and a place where I just love the look of hand embroidery and handwork in general. And if you happen to be, traveling this summer or going on a road trip or something like that, handwork allows you to take your sewing with you, giving you an activity to, bide your time. So there is a time and place where handwork is amazing and a great alternative. So you certainly could do a machine embroidery design in the center here, like I mentioned, but here's what it's going to look like if you use that stick and stitch transfer method. For a simple design like this, I would probably just draw on my fabric using that removable fabric marker. But for more intricate designs, or maybe it's a font that has a lot of, swirlies and squigglies, and I really want to follow those lines really well, the stick and stitch comes to the rescue, especially since you can run it through your home printer. I should mention that when you do run it through your home printer, make sure you're printing on the fabric-like side and not on the paper backing, because we're going to be removing that, right? So make sure you're printing on the fabric-like side. And if you have the option on your printer to set it for the lowest ink setting, definitely do that. Just go all the way down, because you don't need to oversaturate the product and waste any of your ink. All right, so now that the embroidery is complete, we need to remove that stabilizer. So first, I like to trim around the embroidery as much as possible. It just is less that I have to rinse away. So, for this simple design, I just kind of lift up the sticker, trim it away, giving a little bit of a border so I don't get too close to the stitches. I don't want to lift up my sticker and have any of my stitches pop out. So you just want to, trim as much as you can in and around your finished embroidery. And then we're going to take it over to the sink and we're going to rinse away any of the excess stick and stitch stabilizer under running water. And you can make the water a little bit warm. That will make it just kind of dissolve a little bit faster. It will work under cool water as well. But I find, lukewarm or even warm water does the trick a little bit faster. And you want to make sure it's under running water. If you happen to have one of those kitchen sprayers, that gives it a little bit of good agitation and allows those particles to really just roll or fall right off of the fabric surface. But your regular old, bathroom faucet will do just fine as well. You might want to give it a little bit of agitation with your fingernail if you have some stubborn bits that are maybe inside of like an O or something like that, where the stitches have enclosed that area. But it shouldn't take too long and your stabilizer will be completely dissolved. And see, there it is. No more stabilizer. No one has any idea that I didn't just freehand this, and I don't have any other markings to remove. So after that, you want to just make sure that you're not wringing out your finished work, okay? Because obviously it's going to be very saturated. But sometimes when you're wringing it out, you can kind of stretch or distort your beautiful handwork. So instead of doing that, I just put it flat on a really plushy towel, and then I can roll the towel up and kind of squeeze out the excess moisture. Then I unroll it and just let it dry flat on its own. All right, so after it is dry, now we're going to build the wall art. So I've gathered some more materials. You can see this is the thread that I used for the design. It's got a little bit of the poly sparkle in there as well. I'm going to bring in some pom-pom fringe because I love pom-pom fringe. Anybody who watches So What religiously knows that I love me some pom-pom fringe. So we're going to use it here. I think, patriotic projects, they need the glitz, they need the fringe, they need all of that to sort of mimic, all the fireworks and colors and all of that. So I thought pom-pom fringe was going to be a cute little addition to the wall art piece. And then I found in the button section of my fabric store, I found these little bits and baubles. Okay, so I guess technically they're buttons, but they don't have any shank to them. So they're really more like embellishments. So I'm going to sprinkle those on top of my wall art when I'm done, and I'll be hand sewing them or hand tacking them in place using sulky invisible thread. That way you can't see any of the thread and it doesn't compete with any of those motifs. And they're little like stars and little firework bursts and things like that. All right, so we're gonna hoop our finished work again. And this time we really want to be sure that we are centering that design so that it looks really nice in the hoop, because the hoop is actually our frame for our wall art. And since we're adding all of these other accoutrements to it, or other embellishments to it, we want to be sure that it's nice and centered in that hoop. And actually, looking at this picture now, mine needs a little bit more work to get it in the center there. And then once you do, you want to trim up your fabric a little bit. Make sure that you can't see any of those raw edges from the right side when you hang your finished piece. But also, give yourself enough of a border so that you can wrap the fabric around the back of the hoop. You can actually use some double-sided tape to make sure that that is secured. We have some at sulky.com. It's just a double-sided basting tape, and it's only 1/8 of an inch wide. So you can place it on the inner hoop and stick the back of your fabric to it. And I really prefer that to, let's say, hot glue. Some people finish their wall art using hot glue or a felt backing that's glued to the back of the piece. Well, there goes your hoop, right? You can't use it for anything else if you want to switch this out for something else that's seasonal later on. So I really like that double-sided basting tape, and it tears away really cleanly off of the back of the hoop when you're done using it. So it's a really great alternative and still a way to finish your wall art without harming anything. So once you have all that nice and neat and in place, it is time for the fun part of gilding the lily and embellishing this. So here is that basting tape I was talking about. It's 1/8 of an inch wide. Again, it's double-sided. It's pretty strong. And I'm going to use that to attach my pom-pom fringe to the edge of my hoop on the right side. And this is just really kind of trimming out my frame design. So you can see I have a layer of that tape, and I've just placed it on the outer rim of my hoop. This was before I trimmed the fabric. So I also did it on that other side, as I mentioned as well. Then you'll peel off that paper backing all the way around your top hoop. And now we're going to start placing our trim. Very easy. Just follow along your entire circle and begin on one sort of hoop end. There should be a little bit of an opening. That's where your hoop kind of comes apart so you can snap the inner hoop out. That's the adjustable area. So just begin on one side, go all the way around, and end along the opposite edge. Now we have our cute little pom-pom trim attached, and it does need something else. Am I right? It's awfully blue, and we need a little bit more bling, a little bit more of those red and white colors coming through. So here's where we can bring in little charms, buttons, sequins, all kinds of things. Dive into your button jar that you probably have. Find little odds and ends, or go to the trim section or button section of your fabric store, and you might find a little pack of patriotic embellishments like I did. You could use little ribbons or even scrapbooking materials that you might find in the scrapbook aisle. Those would work for something like wall art, where we normally, can't put those on items that we're sewing, soft crafts. But wall art is the perfect thing for those little odds and ends. So you'll just arrange those wherever you want them, and then we're going to sew them in place using that sulky invisible thread. And I just did some little groupings of them here. And you can even use this as a centerpiece, maybe even for your outdoor decor, or of course, it's wall art, so you hang it on the wall. All right, so if you would rather create a little pillow out of your embroidered denim USA frame, here is a really cute idea. So, of course, we have our back pocket of our jeans as well. It's already a pocket, so why not use it? I thought this would be really cute because you could create a little small pillow, put it in a centerpiece in your living room, and you could tuck little things in the pocket like the TV remote, a couple of pens, things that you would normally have, maybe even a set of coasters could go in there. And it's just a cute little way to display those little things that you normally have out on the table, but they're tucked away in this cute little pocket. So I'm going to use the pocket piece as the back side of my mini pillow. So you just want to be sure to cut each one to size. And I should have mentioned earlier that all the directions for all the projects I'm going to talk about today are on the Sulky blog, and I've linked to them directly in today's post. So you don't have to write anything down. You don't have to get any of the measurements. You can get all of that from the blog when we're done today for the projects that interest you. So you'll have full instructions and know all kinds of materials lists that you need to gather. So we're just going to measure, making sure for the back portion of our mini pillow that that pocket is centered along that square, or maybe you're making a rectangle size. And then we're going to do the same thing for the front piece. We're going to center our motif, and then we're going to mark our square that we need for the pillow using removable chalk or removable fabric marker. And now we need to get our trim in place, because of course we're going to use the pom-pom fringe in our pillow. So first things first, I like to clip it in place using Wonder Clips. It's very hard to pin trim like this. It can snag depending on, maybe you have a little burr on your pins, which I inevitably do sometimes. Lots of my pins are just bent as well, and it's frustrating. So I like to use Wonder Clips to pin my trim in place, making sure that I have a long enough piece that's going to go all the way around my pillow. And at the corners, I just ease it around the corners and continue pinning along. So to baste my trim in place and to construct my mini pillow, I'm going to use Sulky 50 weight cotton thread, and just pick a color that either matches your trim or, of course, matches the denim fabric that you're working with. So we're going to start basting the trim in place. So we're going to lengthen our stitch to a 5.0, and you can see I have my zipper foot attached here. That is so that my foot doesn't run into my cute palms and cause them to kind of either move or get caught in the stitching. And you want to start sewing about 4 inches or so from the end of your trim. We want to leave a little bit of trim dangling at the beginning and end so that we can join them together seamlessly, so it looks like it's just one piece of trim. So we're going to use that zipper foot. We're going to baste along the center of the trim. Like I said, easing it around those corners just a little bit. And then when you reach the beginning of the trim, see how I just overlap those ends like I crisscross them? And if you have 2 palms that kind of crisscross one over the other, just choose which one you want to be showing. And the other one, you're going to move away from the stitching line. And then you can continue your basting to baste that trim edge. And then you can clip away the excess and trim off if you have any overlapping palms right at that join. So that's how you make your trim look like it's totally seamless and just one piece. We're going to hide those ends inside of the seam allowance. So now we're just going to put the back of our pillow with that great existing pocket over the front that has our trim basted in place, and we're going to clip, clip, clip the entire perimeter. Now we're going to sew the perimeter, and you can see I still have my zipper foot attached. I want to make sure all of those palms are facing the inside of the pillow. So while you're sewing, you can have your finger, kind of over the top of the palms, making sure that none of them have migrated toward the seam. All right, just make sure your fingers are away from the needle, of course, but it's nice to kind of feel where they're at while you're sewing to make sure that they're pulled all toward the center of the pillow. All right, we are also going to leave an opening for turning, of course, as well. And I like to do it on a different edge than where my trim is overlapping. So along one of the side edges, perhaps. And now that our perimeter is sewn with our opening for turning, you're going to clip those corners a little bit so that they are so as to remove some of the bulk along our corners so they won't get all bunchy with our end pillow. So there we have our corner trimmed off just up to the seam without touching it, of course. And then you're going to turn your pillow right side out. You can kind of finger press along the edges. You can tug a little bit gently on your pom-pom fringe. Just don't be too aggressive with it. You don't want it to pull out of shape. And it looks so, so cute with the little dangly pom-poms. Love it. So now we need to stuff this guy. Oh, but first, if you want to add additional embellishments like these little button charms or sequins or things like that, be sure that you are sewing them in place. I waited until the pillow was totally constructed up to this point. So obviously before it's stuffed, but I did not add all of these things before sewing my 2 layers together because they're super bulky, big, charms. So I just stuck my hand into the opening and did my hand sewing that way, to start your needle inside. And then you can kind of whip stitch using that invisible thread to get all of those items in place. There's the Sulky clear invisible thread. It's actually a polyester invisible thread as well. It's a really, I think, above and beyond other monofilament threads you will find out there because you can iron it, you can wash it, it has a much softer hand to it, but it's also strong and really great for adding things like this to more, sort of crafty projects for little, scrapbooky style things of that nature. Ooh, I also wanted to mention when you're working with the invisible thread, it can be kind of hard to thread your needle because you can't really see the thread. So if you happen to have a needle threader like this, I found it was really great for threading my hand sewing needle with the invisible thread because I was sitting there struggling with it for quite a while, like an embarrassingly long time. And so I tried one of these needle threaders. We actually have these at sulky.com. And they came to my house at just the right time. And I thought, I'm going to try one of these needle threaders. And it was so much easier to thread that hand sewing needle. So if you happen to have a needle threader on hand, I would use that for applications like this, if not all the time. They're much easier to use than I anticipated. So I just wanted to mention we have these sort of new Singer ones at sulky.com now. So if you're grabbing up some purchases today, maybe getting your Boba tea kit and you don't have a needle threader, throw one of those in your cart. It could also perhaps take you over that free shipping threshold, which is kind of nice. I would much rather get like some needle threaders than pay somebody to bring my package to my door. Just saying. All right, so after you get your extra embellishments in place on the front of your pillow, make sure you're not sewing through the back, of course. Now we need to stuff it until it is as plump as we would like it. So I really stuffed mine to the gills. I find that over time, I'd rather have more stuffing than not enough. And I really start with the corners and push a lot of that fiber fill into the corners. And then I start filling in around the seam line. I even sometimes use a point turner to push the fiber fill into the seam line and the corners. And then I can really put lots into the center of the pillow. So once you have it as plump as you like it, we've got to sew our opening shut as well. So make sure that you're tucking your seam allowances into the wrong side, and then you can whip stitch or slip stitch that opening shut, making sure that all of your palms are outside of the seam allowance and you don't have one in there that maybe you accidentally pushed into the pillow while you were stuffing it. Ask me how I know that. Just something to think about. And then you have your cute little finished pillow that has the cute little pocket on the other side. So if you're using this for outdoor decor, maybe it's going to have some of your, forks and spoons in it, and you can have it at a little sundae station to have a little dessert moment at your outdoor barbecue, let's say. Or you can put this on your coffee table. Like I said, put your TV remote in that little pocket or a set of patriotic-themed coasters. And I think it's just a really cute little, way to use up scraps, of course, because you don't need a very big length of pom-pom trim. We're using up our denim jeans that maybe you used a few weeks ago when you made our beach tote. And it's just really cute with the additional embellishments and little baubles and buttons. So I think it's really festive and a quick and easy, simple thing that you can tackle before July 4 and mix in with your existing patriotic decor. And be sure that you are engaging with the post today. I should have mentioned that at the top because, as always, we have a great gift from Sulky that we're giving away today. If you are commenting, giving me those great emojis, asking your questions, if you have been thus far, you're automatically eligible to win the Uncle Sam Machine Embroidery Collection. I think that deserves a round of applause, and I apologize for not mentioning it earlier. The one lucky viewer who's watching right now and commenting and doing all those great things will be the winner of our Uncle Sam Machine Embroidery Collection. And I can't wait to see what you create out of it and out of all the red, whites, and blues and sparkles that we have available at sulky.com. So, without further ado, I will let you all have the rest of your day to run to your sewing rooms and get creative and make something fun. And again, make sure you are all registered and have your kit on order for our Boba Tea in the Hoop zipper pouch webcast because it's coming up shortly and I am so excited for it and I hope you are too. All right. Thanks everybody for watching today, and be sure to tune in next week for another So What and for the Boba Tea webcast that follows. And have a great rest of your day, and go sew something.